For the women who applied and were accepted, what training did they go through? What did it mean for them to be a stewardess?
The training was pretty rigorous and really interesting in a lot of ways, because it really exemplified the two extremes of the job, of real grit and glamour. On the one hand, so it was for Pan Am, at least it was 6 weeks at their Miami training school, and each of those weeks had kind of a different focus. And what I found so interesting about it, as I was looking at what they did, and I read training manuals and looked at the quizzes that they got. The dichotomy was so vast, and it's so interesting to look at. They were tested on things like how to prepare a good highball in the right. What's the order in which you put things into a highball glass as you're making a cocktail for someone. Um, and then at the same time, they were tested on, what are the forces, the physical forces that are working on an airplane as it's moving through the air, and what are the names of, what's the difference between the yaw and the pitch and the, like, I honestly I forget, but these very detailed questions of physics. So these women were, they spent a week on grooming, figuring out the proper posture and what are the best colors for your eyeshadow given your skin tone and your hair color. And then at the same time, they were, the training school had a ditching pool, so they would practice jumping out of a plane's fuselage to get into the pool for a water landing. And they were tested on the speed at which they could get a group of people out of the plane. And so you had these two real extremes. On the one hand, it was incredibly superficial, and on the other hand, it was real.
That is a really interesting dichotomy between, the aesthetics of their job and the hospitality part, but then the actual public safety.
Completely. They were, they were, in the words of today, they were really first responders in a lot of ways. And a lot of the women who wound up being on planes that were hijacked in the golden era of hijacking, or that wound up getting into terrible accidents, they wound up having to do the worst. The worst possible things, right?
Mhm.
One Pan Am stewardess in the 80s, I mean, and this is an extreme case, but a stewardess named Nirja wound up giving her life when a terrorist boarded her plane, and she was shot protecting her passengers. So these dangers were real, and the women had to know how to handle almost any eventuality and think on their feet, and be really prepared, how to keep a keen eye observing who was doing what on a plane and what the machinery was telling them, if they needed to tell the captain anything important, that there was a mechanical failure in any way. They were really alert to all of these really extreme circumstances. And at the same time, they really had to project this kind of unstudied glamour and ease and feminine